Hello and welcome everybody to According to Andrew number 72, my review of Black Clover. I realize I've been gone for a while, and that is because just stuff changing around. So hopefully I am more consistent now moving forward. But I just finished or caught up to the last bit of the show. Could have done this a bit earlier, but yeah, I was thinking about not doing it, but it was so good that I was like, there's no way I can't do a review of this thing. Uh, and it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to be great. I know a lot of people have I think people have undersold this show, personally, from the reviews I've watched at least. So I kind of want to talk about that and things like that. So the thing that got me into this is uh, they basically described it as a shonen, which is what it is, and it does. It's basically like it's nothing new, nothing too interesting going on, but it's a shonen that's action packed and it does what shonens do well, and it does it, and it basically just takes all of the tropes of shonenism and refines them and makes them great. Uh, and I haven't watched a ton of shonens and stuff like that, but I have to kind of disagree. I think it's better storytelling and stuff like that than a lot of other stuff I've seen. The pacing's amazing. The story is like got a depth to it. And have I watched One Piece? No. Have I watched Naruto? No. Have I watched a ton of the shonens? Not really. I watched some of Dragon Ball. Uh, watched Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day. I don't know if you count that as a shonen. Um, what are some of the other big ones? My Hero Academia I haven't gotten through yet. But anyway, regardless, if you like shonens, you like shonens, and quite frankly, I think this is one of the better ones. And I don't think I don't understand why people were kind of dismissive of it. Uh, but it's amazing. So let's get one of the bad things out of the way first. Um, Asta, the main character, yells a lot. That's kind of part of his character or whatever. Uh, I didn't. It didn't really bother me that much. I also kind of knew that going in, so it didn't bug me that much. But yeah, he yells a lot. He's just a very excitable person, I guess. And so uh, if that bugs you, then maybe you'll hate this show. But I don't know. I don't think it's something that really bugged me. I watched the dub version. I heard the sub version is worse for the yelling thing. I haven't seen it, so take that as you will. Um, but yeah. So so that's kind of one of the bad things. The other bad thing ties into a point that I have later. So we'll talk about that when we get there. Um, so what does it do well? So it's action packed. Its pacing's great. Its story like hooks you. At least did for me. Um, and it's one of those things where you're watching it and you'll like watch like 10 episodes and like won't even realize that you've watched 10 episodes because it's just like awesome thing after awesome thing and you just want to know what's going to happen next, and so you're just like churning through the episodes. Like it's 150 episodes roughly now, and uh I flew. Well, I was watching with my dad, and we flew through that like in no time. Like it didn't feel like 150 episodes, where some series are like, oh, this is dragging on, or but like it felt like I had only watched half that amount of episodes. It just the pace and stuff like that I went for. Like the other major shonen that I've got to watch is Fairy Tail. I really like it. I think it's fun or whatever. But Black Clover, in terms of its pacing and stuff like that, well outdoes this. And I thought Fairy Tail doesn't really have like tons of filler episodes. The filler episodes they do have, usually they're pretty fun and kind of build up a character, give it a little bit more dynamic. And Black Clover does that to a certain extent too. So I wouldn't really necessarily call them filler episodes, but um, they're like with Fairy Tail and stuff like that. It's sometimes it's like, oh, what's gonna happen next? But like the action isn't as nearly fast paced. There isn't like this thing that leads into this thing that now they gotta combat that. Like there's just all this dynamic build up stuff. And there's aspects of that happen in like Fairy Tail and stuff like that, but it just doesn't. It's not on the same level as something like as Black Clover. And I know a lot of people hate Fairy Tail. I don't care. I think it's awesome. Um, and yeah, it's just the pacing of this show is way different than that one. So despite it being 150 episodes, it flies. Um, The next major thing is like how the arc, basically there's like some setup stuff, and then it kind of gets into the first arc, and then the first arc concludes. Uh, it might be in season 3. Anyway, uh, it's the first arc's pretty long, and there's a lot of in-depth stuff, and there's little intricacies and aspects to it, and it all kind of comes together, and there's all these different angles to it, and it's amazing how it all kind of came together at the end, and all the parts kind of what came out of it, and the people that you got to meet, the history that you got to learn and stuff like that. And I thought it did a really good job of storytelling, and it had a lot more depth than a lot of the other stories that I see. It wasn't just this person bad and this thing came up. There was like twists, there was surprises. Um, it was a really well thought out, well executed story arc, and if they can continue that level of storytelling throughout this whole thing, I think has the chance to be an absolutely amazing um, show. Just to give I I just kind of assumed people knew what I was talking about. Black Clover, basically, World of Magic, and Asta, the main character, who was just previously on the screen, and is the dude on the left or right. I'm not sure how you guys are going to be looking at this. Um, with the white and black hair and red and green eye. Um, he's the main character. His main thing is that he has no magic. So you have the nobility that have the most amount of magic, and you have the peasants who have the least amount of magic. But generally, basically everybody has some amount of magic, except for Asta. He has exactly zero magic. Um, and he wants to become the Wizard King. The Wizard King is basically the leader of the Wizard Knights, and basically the supreme commander um, the armed forces of the Clover Kingdom. And so it's his journey to get there. Except for the fact that to be the Wizard King, you generally have to be uh, one of the, if not the most powerful wizard in the entire world. And he has exactly zero magic. Um, so he's got to figure out how to get there, and he gets lucky and basically gets anti magic somehow. Uh, and they haven't really answered the question on how that happened, or they've answered aspects of it, but it's an interesting show. So that's basically the premise. Is he in a world of magic? He's the only one with anti magic, and he figures out how to use that as best as possible. But you know, it's also he's someone that works really hard and stuff like that. It's a really good example of what's the dynamic? Basically, uh, you miss all the shots you don't take kind of thing, and Asa's the one that's taken every shot that he possibly can. You know, those, or what is it? Luck comes to those who work hard. Maybe that's the phrase. I don't remember the exact phrase, but basically it's the people that put themselves out there, that take the opportunities, that put themselves in a position to get lucky, to take advantage of opportunities when they arise, are the ones that are going to be granted with these abilities to succeed. So that's basically kind of what he was like. I have zero magic power, but I'm gonna make it happen, and I'm gonna be the Wizard King despite all of these hurdles and these obstacles that I need to overcome, and we're gonna make this happen. And so because he decides that he's gonna outwork this problem, which look, at the end of the day, sometimes you can't outwork problems, but you know his attitude of he is gonna outwork this problem allows him the opportunity to get lucky and um, get something that allows him to potentially reach his end goal. Uh, and that's a dynamic you see in a lot of shows and shonens and stuff like that. But it's really on display here. Um, but yeah, so the first arc is absolutely amazing. I'm hoping the second arc is just as good. There's elements of it that kind of were promising towards the end of the episodes that are out right now. It was starting to get set up, and then unfortunately the episodes ended. They're currently kind of getting released and stuff like that. So that's something to look forward to. I think that's got a good shot. But I'm kind of interested to see where this story kind of goes. One other complaint that I had about the show is there was clearly budget limitations after major fight scenes. So there would be a awesome action-packed like fight where things are going crazy and punches are flying everywhere and it's super cool. And then like the next episode, there'd be like 5 to 10 minutes of the exact same footage you've already seen, mainly just to make it so that that episode needed less frames made, so that it was a cheaper episode to produce. Because and this is something that I kind of learned from watching the Trash Taste podcast, or a highlight from there, is the those fight scenes require so much more frames, like it's like 600 or something like that, and then on the talking ones, maybe it's closer to 100 frames or something like that. And so just the amount of money that it took to animate those fight scenes usually probably exceeds the amount of budget, and they need to find ways to cut back. And so one of those ways is to do kind of longer recaps of the previous episode, things of that nature. So that's something that's a little annoying, but all the other positives I think is easily overlooked. Also, this isn't really a negative, but something just to point out is there's about 2 to 4 recap episodes that kind of get you caught up with what's going on. So if you've watched all the episodes, you don't need to watch those, and it's pretty obvious early on. Oh, this is just recapping stuff that we've already seen. You can just skip by those, so that saves you some time right there. That might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing depending on your perspective, but there you go. You got that for you. So basically the story revolves around Asta and Yuno, childhood friends that become rivals in the goal of becoming the Wizard King. And uh, it's kind of interesting because based on their goal, and if that's how the series is going to end, is one of those two is going to become the Wizard King, or maybe some other crazy thing's going to happen. But it seems like that's what we're leading up to. Asta's going to become the Wizard King. It's kind of like Luffy's tale of he's going to become the Pirate King, which I haven't watched One Piece, but that's a thing. But the rate at which this story has moved forward makes me think that this could be a very, very long running series. And if if you like the story like I do, that's a good thing. I don't want to say it's going to be like a One Piece style, but let me give you an example of where that might be the case. So, the current Wizard King is roughly 32 years old or so, and both these characters start at 15. We don't know when he became Wizard King, but let's say he's been Wizard King for 4 years. So he became Wizard King at 28. Now, I don't think that they're going to have them age from 15 to 28 before they become Wizard King. But let's even just say that they go and they become the Wizard King arc basically gets finished after 5 years, right? So they're 20. Uh, you could maybe even have it happen at 18. The fact that they're 15 right now, like, is obviously way too young, and they're not mature enough and stuff like that to be the Wizard King. And that's very clearly shown by how the Wizard King handles various diplomatic situations and stuff like that, and works. He's both a politician because he's got to deal with the nobles and diplomats and stuff like that, and also has to be a powerful mage because he's commanding forces, and also kind of like a general and stuff like that. He's got a lot of responsibilities to balance that's going to require someone that's more mature. And so even 20 is kind of pushing it in terms of ability to have these guys kind of take over the mantle of Wizard King and have it be believable. Because at that point when you're the Wizard King, like at that you should be like a role model, and they do a good job of establishing both Asta and Yuno as role models in various things, right? Asta's the guy that never gives up, and therefore he's a role model for his team. Yuno is the guy who is very gifted magically, and so he's kind of like an inspiration to his team of how to use magic in a very effective way. I guess that's what I'm going to go with. I'm not trying to spoil anything. So far, I don't think I've said anything that could spoil anything. So let's say they get to 20, right? So and it took about 150 episodes to get to about a year's time passing. Now, obviously, some of the pacing and stuff like that could change, and we could have some time jumps and some other weird stuff. But if we stick to that kind of pacing, we're talking about like 600 episodes before these guys hit 20. Now I don't know if that's the plan or whatever. And even if we do shoot to 18, that's 3 years. We're through a year already in the show, so that's 2 more years. So that's 300, 450 episodes for 2 more years. Just 2 more years. It's 450 episodes. Um, so if this is the pace, and I kind of hope that's the case that of what's happening because the way he was able to craft the story and this arc and all this crazy intrigue and political backstabbing and uh, other aspects of the first arc that happened, um, and develop all those aspects accordingly. I think if those are as developed and as well thought out and uh, played out in the execution as this one, they maybe won't have to take 150 episodes to do that, just because maybe you could have smaller teams of people or uh, there's various things that can make it happen. There's also some various writing tools slash tropes that he could use to shorthand some of this stuff without potentially affecting the storyline. But either way, you're looking at a manga and or anime that could last for a very, very long time. Which, again, if you're a fan of the show, which I am, is a good sign. And I'm definitely looking forward to it. Um, but it's kind of an interesting thing to see what's going to happen and whether or not first, if that first story arc is the best one, or if that is just a sign of greatness to come. So we'll kind of see, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. I hope the sophistication and stuff like that stays up there. One little thing that makes me a little concerned about it um, is, and maybe they'll have to go back and do something like Full Alchemist, uh, Full Metal Alchemist, and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, where because the anime caught up to the manga, which this seems to always happen, and they were given some story plot points from the writer, and then they kind of built stuff off of those points that he had. And apparently they diverged from some of the stuff he had some issues with. This is kind of rumor speculation, but generally when that stuff happens, you're going to see a divergence between what's going on in the anime and what's going on in the manga, and you're I'm a little worried that the with all the other stuff that the animation crew has to do, they have to animate. Obviously, it's different people doing that kind of stuff, but it's there's constrained budgets here, right? If you're spending a bunch of money on animation and voice acting and all this other stuff, uh, you only have so much to get like top end writers to make sure that story is written really well. And this is where like some of the story could suffer. And I'm I hope this isn't the case, and I hope things work out. Or if the manga does, if they do kind of diverge, and the manga ends up being this absolutely amazing uh, work of genius, brilliance, or whatever, that they go back and redo it with the like the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and just Metal Alchemist difference. So I'd like to see kind of how those dynamics play out. But we'll kind of have to wait and see with that. That's kind of my last little thing that I wanted to mention about this whole thing. But yeah, hopefully you guys found that interesting and are glad that I am back doing this stuff. I've been kind of inconsistent. The reason I'm talking about anime and stuff like that is because that's basically what I've been doing. So I wanted to talk about it. And so yeah, I don't know how many more of these I'm gonna review, and it probably won't be a regular thing, but I'm just gonna kind of talk about and review and stuff like that, things that are going on in my life and things I'm thinking and stuff like that. And so this is what I thought was interesting, so that's what we're doing. Uh, but if you haven't watched it, I'd highly recommend it. I watched it on Funimation as the dub version. Uh, it's also available on Crunchyroll, and there's more episodes available, but it is only subbed, so that's up to you if you want to watch that or not. But that's basically wrapped for the day. Thank you guys for listening. Like, share, subscribe, all that normal stuff. Comment. Let me know if you think my take on this is trash or if you agree with me. I always like to see what people have to think. But anyway, have yourselves a good one. Goodbye.